Hello, my name is Asad Baig, and I'm the founder of Media Matters for Democracy, which is Pakistan's leading media development organization. First off, I'm extremely sorry we have to talk through this screen because unfortunately I couldn't travel to RightsCon. But I really wanted to take this opportunity to talk about Trends Monitor, which is perhaps one of the most exciting initiatives that we have run to date through Media Matters for Democracy. And you'll see just in 1 minute why I'm saying that. Uh, it's essentially a framework, but when we say Trends Monitor, the larger initiative essentially is about the investigations that we have conducted into various political hashtags on Twitter in Pakistan. And the idea was to see whether or not they were engineered or manipulated through fake accounts. So Trends Monitor essentially for now is only a framework, as in it's not a platform, it's not an app for now. It's just a research framework. And this framework is deployed by the Media Matters team in Pakistan, and it's basically to assess, identify, and document political manipulation of Twitter hashtags. And this framework, as I just told you, it was developed in the pretext of general elections in Pakistan. And the idea was that we wanted to see that how much of this digital political campaigning that is happening on Twitter and Facebook, which is a lot, by the way, in Pakistan, how much of that was indigenous and how much of that was kind of engineered and manipulated by various political parties through their troll armies and so on. Now, why is that important? Uh, for starters, political campaigning in Pakistan is extremely serious business because Pakistan is the sixth most populated country in the world. We have a population of more than 200 million, so you can imagine what the political campaign might look like on ground. But it's equally sort of turbulent in the digital sphere as well. In 2013 and 2018 and even before that, we've kind of monitored how the digital spaces were used, and we've seen that there is a progressive increase in digital political campaigning on platforms now. But there is also a correlation between the organized spread of disinformation online, targeted campaigns against journalists and human rights defenders, and so on. So they are also increasing with the increase in the digital political campaigning. And we thought, why? Before we developed Trends Monitor, we kind of investigated some of the accounts which were involved in populating and propagating some of these political hashtags, and we found out there were very few accounts, obviously, so they couldn't really make an evidence base for us. But we found out that these accounts were the same that were involved in starting insightful campaigns against journalists and human rights defenders and political opponents of the political parties and so on. Then we realized, assessing these accounts and kind of investigating deeper, we realized that political parties, each of them, almost every political party, state and non-state actors as well, they have a troll army of their own. They have a bunch of their accounts which may range from 100 or few hundreds to few thousands or even more, depending on the size of the political party and the kind of resources that they're deployed into maintaining such structure. And the one purpose for these troll armies is to kind of propagate in the favor of that particular party. And when I say insightful and hateful campaign, so for instance, a hateful campaign in US may only mean targeting someone's reputation, but this kind of a campaign in Pakistan and India could mean that it can actually it's a direct threat to your life. I mean, in India, for instance, we've seen in the last 2 years, 31 people have died in the instances of lynching, and all these instances were related to instances of misinformation spread through social media. 31 people. Thankfully, we don't have that many cases in Pakistan, but the trend is very obvious. So Trends Monitor essentially came as a response from our side, from Media Matters, to document this manipulation and create an evidence base. Because till now, we didn't really have anything to show. I mean, we knew what was happening, but we didn't really have anything to show for it, right? What it does is that it quantifies the presence of human bots, which is a term that we have coined ourselves. Human bots essentially means fake accounts which are run by human beings. They're not essentially bots, but they're acting like. And the aim was to identify those and kind of quantify them in an easily understandable figure to tell people what is happening in a particular hashtag. And Before I talk about what can Trends Monitor do and what we have done so far, I'm going to talk about how the Trends Monitor came into being. So to form the framework, four team members from Media Matters, we analyzed some 500 hashtags, 500. Uh, and it took us about 2.5 months, I think about 3 months of a time. What we did was, in the 3 months period, we kind of analyzed every hashtag which was trending in Pakistan on Twitter. We deconstructed the main characteristics and attribute of any given hashtag, and we kind of closely monitored it. So we monitored the composition, we monitored the kind of accounts that were contributing to it. We monitored the areas that hashtag was getting popular in, or getting contribution from. We were observing the influence that the accounts that are contributing to these hashtags enjoy, and so on. So we kind of made a long list of characteristics and attributes for any given hashtag. So at the end of the day, we got a really good mix of international, as in global, and local hashtags. And that allowed us to study the characteristics of both. And by the end of it, we kind of identified 8 major characteristics. And using the data and our observation we have conducted in about 3 months, we concluded with a threshold value of each of those characteristics. So essentially, we know that when the threshold value of each characteristics crosses that figure that we've identified, we correlate it with the other characteristics, other hashtags. I'm sorry, other attributes of the same hashtag, and then you kind of find out what's happening. And the results are very simple. They kind of look like this. We monitored 37 hashtags. We selected 5 among those 37 to deeply analyze, but unfortunately we were only able to analyze 3 of them. We found that the hashtags with the highest number of bot value had a small number of Twitter accounts contributing to it, with a very large number of tweets. So one account was, let's say, on an average sending 5 plus or 6 plus tweets at a time. These were also the accounts which had less than 500 followers. So they were kind of almost dedicated to this hashtag activity. Number one. Number two, the top contributing accounts to this hashtag, or any hashtags that we monitor, some of them had as many as 2,000 tweets sent per day to populate a certain political hashtag. And so we realized that this was a recurring activity for them. This was a trend. And this was obviously it was a key finding in this research. We also found that the contributing accounts were involved in directly initiating targeted hate and incitement campaigns against journalists and human rights defenders. From the list of the hashtags that these accounts have contributed to, we found that there were various similar hashtags which were targeting journalists and inciting violence against them. And interestingly, most of these times, these allegations, then we found that in addition to the regular platforms like Twitter for Android or iPhone for Android or the web platform and so on, some of these bot armies have built their own platforms which are linked with the Twitter APIs, and they're kind of acting like machine gun preloaded with tweets, and they're kind of throwing tweets one per 50, maybe 50 tweets per minute or 40 tweets per minute with a frequency like that. And that was insane, obviously. That kind of showed that there was a certain amount of automation happening in the tweeting and retweeting process. And so these were just some of the findings. It's a very, very long report. I'll just show you in 1 minute and you'll realize so these are just one of the findings. Some of the findings, I'm sorry. Now the big question, how does Trends Monitor work? What is the process? The process is simple. One, we monitor. There are 2 ways to monitoring. One, we use the streaming API of Twitter, number one. Number two, we use the snapshot API, and we kind of take a historic snapshot of whatever hashtag that we're investigating at that given time. So that's monitoring. Processing is when we kind of use the data and we make it more suitable for the needs of the report. And the third stage is there is a manual analysis of this data, the analytics data, not the content data, the analytics data based on the indicators that we have. Why do we have kept it manual now? This is one of the biggest questions that I've had, that you could have easily used machine learning, for instance, and so on. The idea here is that we didn't really want to use NLP, natural language processing, or machine learning in any ways, because we've tried that. It doesn't work in the case of, in many cases, for instance, now people are tweeting text through images. People are tweeting text through Sindhi language, Urdu language, Pushto, and various other local sort of, scripts. That doesn't really work with NLP. So there is a very, very high likelihood of a wrong analysis. So for now, we have only opted for a manual analysis till we can figure out how to move forward with it. Again, how does it work? It's like a framework I told you. The official name for Trends Monitor is HBI, which is Human Bot Activity Index, something we use very commonly within Media Matters. So, and HBI has two main components. Number one, it has 8 indicators and various sub-indicators. Number one. Number two, each indicator has its own scale. This scale is called HBAS. And for the final score that I showed you here, what we do is we aggregate the score from HBAS and convert into AHBAS, which is the aggregated score, and then you see 140 here, and you'll see how it was converted in just 1 minute. Like I said, there are 8 indicators. I'm not going, obviously, I'm not going to go into the detail of each indicator. Everything that I'm talking about is online. You can have a look. I'm just really going to very quickly talk about some of the indicators and show you the real report as well. In fact, let's just start with the active report and then move on to the indicators. This is the main page of the Trends Monitor. Every report that we do in future and that we have done will appear here. Unfortunately, we've only been able to conduct one analysis report. And this analysis report, I'm opening it here. It only has analysis of 3 hashtags, like I told you. I'm just going to talk about the first hashtag that we've analyzed, which I've opened here already. So some of the key characteristics, key values of the hashtag is given on the left, as you can see. So indicator 1 is hashtag composition. What it means is that the percentage of retweets versus tweets versus replies are conducive, or at least in line with the natural order of an exchange of digital exchange. But in hashtags with higher human bot value, we've seen in general that the hashtag composition is something like this. For instance, if you want to have a look, it's online. Indicator 2 is bot activity. To save time, I'm going to skip that for now. It's again simple enough. Saturation is extremely important. Saturation essentially means that the number of Twitter accounts that are contributing to a certain hashtag is reasonable enough with relation to the number of tweets that they are in total. Similarly, influence kind of is equally important for us. It talks about how many followers each of these contributors enjoy. In many cases, we've seen that the bot accounts don't have a lot of followers. Other figures given here, and so you can. So I'm just now going to skip to the very last indicator, which is very interesting. And this last part is kind of like a smoking gun evidence in many ways. This is something what we call a deep user analysis. It has 8 sub-indicators and it tells you everything that there is to know about a particular account. This account, as at one point, has sent about 1900 tweets in one day. And as you would see, this is the activity of this account, and this is pretty much on a similar pattern. And so, importantly, this account has kind of contributed to all the similar hashtags. Let me turn back to the presentation. Phew, that was the Trends Monitor. And what is the future of it? Like I said, this was only in beta. As you must have seen, this is tons of work, and there is no way that 4 of us or 4 of my team members can do this on a regular basis. So what we are doing now is we are kind of automating this process. We still are not using machine learning or NLP in any ways. What we are doing is we're only automating the process of analysis. That's it. So essentially what we are making is Trends Monitor 2.0 will essentially will have a dashboard, and you can just provide one hashtag and you can find a report for that particular hashtag. If you want to know more about Trends Monitor, it's available online. Please give me feedback. I would love to hear from you. And most importantly, have fun at RightsCon.